If you are just waking up this morning, just getting going, just hopping in the car, well, early this morning at about 2 a.m., the Missouri Senate passed Senate Bill 3, known as the Show Me Sports Investment Act. And that will help, in our case, the Chiefs and the Royals pay off construction bonds with tax dollars generated at the stadiums, passing by one vote, 19-13. The bill would pay for up to 50% of the cost of a new or renovated stadium. Mayor Quinton Lucas is here on this breaking news story. Mr. Mayor, good morning. Is this enough to keep these teams in the state of Missouri, assuming, of course, it gets through the House and to the governor's desk in the next week?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I think that this is probably the best concrete package that the teams have in our entire region. You know, we have had a lot of conversation over the past year about what the Kansas Star Bonds can do and cannot do. 70% of stadium costs is at least what is claimed. Let me tell you why the Missouri package is better. First of all, 50% covered by the state of Missouri. That's before you're calculating local government jurisdiction investments, which probably, if I'm just doing a rough estimate, can get you above the 25% range or near that. Suggests the Missouri package, just apples to apples, is already superior. Once you then get to the fact that the Star Bond is not backed by a government entity, the state of Kansas isn't issuing bonds. Most likely the city of name your city in Kansas, Gardner, Overland Park, what have you, is not backing those bonds. But on the Missouri side, as you see in our current stadium situations, Jackson County for the current stadiums, the city of Kansas City for its arena, typically would back those. And so you have a cheaper cost of money. You now have a better financial offer. I think that this is a huge step in resolving this conversation that we've had for a long term, but also makes clear that the Missouri side offers are frankly much sweeter, much clearer with jurisdictions that have been doing it for a while.
So do you feel like this deal for the Missouri taxpayer is a good one?
Yes, I think what was said by you at the top of this segment makes that clear. This is funding that is generated at the stadiums themselves, the stadiums and surrounding areas. And so what that tells you then is that we have the fortune of actually getting the chance for people, it's kind of like a user tax. People who are paying for the stadium are actually doing it themselves. Sorry for the loud car in the neighborhood. And so what that suggests for me is that this is the sort of thing that is not general revenue. This is not actually looking to rob Peter to pay Paul from some other revenue source. This is looking at what do those teams generate? How do you actually get that back into the stadium to fund the stadium? And allows us to collect, by the way, good revenues off of those stadiums for many other public purposes. It is good public policy, a great proposal by Governor Kehoe, and I think it's the sort of thing that not only gets the deal done, but gets a deal done fairly for our taxpayers.
If these stadiums, and I'm just going to throw out a round number here, we're generating $50 million in sales tax revenues, and now those revenues are basically being given back to the teams, that is basically a $50 million shortfall, though, for the state, right?
So I would suggest that those revenues are, I wouldn't contest the $50 million. I would suggest that those revenues are split among different jurisdictions. But let's say that you're putting city of Kansas City, state of Missouri, Jackson County, all of that in the same bucket. Yeah, I mean, I think that there is some loss here. Of course, the challenge is for those who are saying, don't support it. You lose it anyway, right? If they all move to Kansas tomorrow, if they move to a different jurisdiction, right, that is all funding that you lose. The reason, of course, that you would invest is the secondary impact you can have in an area. Let's use as an example downtown Kansas City. If the theory is that you're filling up more hotel rooms through the summer months, that you're seeing new economic development for folks trying to buy up more property in the core of the city, opening things and purchasing more things, then you get more secondary benefit. But look, part of the reason we're in this conversation isn't just because either I or Governor Kehoe or anybody is a big fanboy of the Royals or the Chiefs or anyone, although we like them. It is because we are trying to make sure that we can salvage the tax revenues to the fullest extent possible that we might otherwise lose if these teams were to relocate.
Well, yeah, and let's be honest. I've heard Governor Kehoe say the Royals are his favorite American League team. So we know where his loyalties lie. Quinton Lucas is here on KCMO. So let's go back 15 months, Mr. Mayor. We look at April of 2024. Basically, that would have extended the status quo, 3% sales tax out of Jackson County, split by these two teams for the foreseeable future. If that had passed, there would, as I understand it, at least as I recall the conversations at the time, there would have been no sweet offer like this from the state of Missouri.
Correct.
So now the state of Missouri comes in. So why or do we need a local, whether it's county or city element to any of this based on this deal passing through the state?
I think that's a fair question. Do we need it? Probably not, although I imagine the teams in their negotiations will compare what is being offered by other jurisdictions in our current border war battle and say this is something that is essential to our offer, at least as we see it. But you're right. There is a brand new revenue stream, and a substantial one, that goes to supporting the stadiums that did not exist in Missouri. Well, frankly, didn't exist a week ago, but certainly when we were thinking about this 14 to 15 months ago. I'm realistic. I think that there will still be that ask from local government jurisdictions. I do think that there will be arm's length negotiation about how much it is and what type of investment we are looking to do. But this does change that world and outlook. I told a woman I worked with, Morgan Saeed, last year when the stadium issues did not pass. I didn't lose confidence in the teams will remain in Missouri. I'm as confident today as I've been at any point throughout. I just thought, it'd be a lot harder, be a pain in the rear a little bit, and I think it would be more costly to the taxpayer. I will admit this as clearly as anyone. Right now, the city of Kansas City in particular gets a darn sweet deal. The city of Kansas City itself does not actually fund beyond a few $1 million a year the stadiums. It's a county collected sales tax. We get earnings taxes, sales taxes off of it. It is a very positive fiscal outlook for the city of Kansas City. If either of those teams were to leave, that is a huge challenge. But even if they were to stay, but in a restructured deal, that presents a challenge. So that's part of what we're evaluating. But I do continue to think the city of Kansas City is vastly better with them present, with them paying earnings taxes, getting certain sales taxes from them than us without.
So you have tried to be creative over the last year or so with different offers to try to entice specifically the Royals to build their new stadium somewhere downtown. And, there were a lot of different opinions, I'm sure you heard, on how valuable and what the backings were on these deals. Are those deals off the table now because of what's been offered by the state?
Not at all. Not at all. I think that what we have continued to say, and we say this, with some level of, I think, honor, integrity, trust, and respect, which is what we were negotiating before, always anticipated that the state of Missouri would be playing an important role. And I'll give this credit to the Royals and the Chiefs. I think when they were having a conversation years ago, there was always an intention that there would be contributions from the city, state, and county in certain situations. I think what we have seen over the past year is that the city and the state are largely able to get a Royals deal done, and or, of course, Clay County in the state of Missouri are able to get one done. But I think that, we will continue to look to have that negotiation. On the Chiefs, and after my last interview with you last week, some people said, it looks like he's given up on the Chiefs. I absolutely haven't. I just recognize that the city of Kansas City isn't the landlord for the Chiefs. And most discussions on the Chiefs relate to them staying at the Truman Sports Complex that is owned by Jackson County. That's why I think they remain an important part of that conversation. But having met with them before, the Chiefs, the city is interested in playing a key role to the fullest extent we can and having them stay there, just recognizing that we can incentivize, but we are not the landlord to have them. With the Royals, I am of the view that, frankly, as fast as people are willing to work, we can get a deal done. If it is a day after the governor signs these special session bills, I think the city of Kansas City is ready to get moving. And I make that distinct from every local government jurisdiction working on it. We have the bond authorization to be able to handle it. We have handled large debt issues before. Up in Clay County, you never passed that sports commission bill. I still don't know what exactly it was going to do in terms of holding the debt. I think these are things Kansas City can get done tomorrow. And I think this helps us get these deals done, at least one of them for the Royals, by the end of the month.
Could you see a world, and this is just something that I think would make economic sense and political sense for these two teams and the leaders involved, where if the Royals stay in Kansas City, Missouri, and move to a preferred site downtown, they can get a deal with this nice state deal plus something through the city of Kansas City, Missouri, while the Chiefs stay where they're at. They have this new sweetheart deal from the state, and they can actually go to a ballot by themselves on this sales tax extension, cut the sales tax because they don't have to actually share it with the Royals anymore, and they can go to the voter and say, it's just the Chiefs, and we're actually cutting your taxes. I mean, that feels like a political no-brainer to me. Is that a possibility?
I think not only is it a possibility, but it gets by the day ever closer to a likelihood. I think that this is something that is a net positive for the voters in our region. You get a sensible deal worked out in downtown Kansas City. And I know we've gone through all the ruminations and all of that. The beginning of this conversation was the Royals wanting to go downtown because they wanted to generate more butts in the seats, really, and wanted to create more financial opportunities relating to it. And don't get me wrong, you can build a Funco land almost anywhere in the region, all that sort of stuff. I get it. But where do we have a lot of tourist dollars? Where do we have a lot of tourist attention? Where do we have a lot of conventions now? I think the city can get that done, and I think you can get that done without a tax increase for either Kansas City voters, Clay County, Jackson County, any type of voter. And then I think when you look at the Chiefs question, you absolutely have the opportunity now with the state incentive to have a tax cut to Jackson Countyans, but a continuation of something that supports the Truman Sports Complex, and by the way, in so doing, supports Central and Eastern Jackson County, keeps a key regional asset in the approximate areas of Independence, Raytown, even Lee's Summit, Blue Springs, and others. I think it is important for regional balance. It's important for Eastern Jack, and I think it's important for the state of Missouri. I think that, frankly, Governor Kehoe deserves great credit for, I think, bridging the gap in a conversation that was largely frozen in terms of making sure you have responsible deals for the taxpayers, something that gets this all resolved and allows local government jurisdictions and the teams to finish this conversation once and for all fairly to the taxpayers and, of course, the teams themselves.
Mayor Lucas on KCMO. Now, on another note, speaking of sports, of course, the World Cup's coming here next year. Please don't tell me the city's going to be paying people tens of thousands of dollars to fill empty storefronts next summer. Tell me that that's not really going to happen.
Yeah, the headline was weird to me. No, it's a business incentive to actually get businesses opening up in places where there have been challenges in opening up. It is not just saying, hey, put a poster up and a fake piece of jewelry, and we're going to make it look like that we're inhabited. That headline, I didn't actually read the story. Headline, I think, was a bit misleading. Instead, it's saying at 18th and Vine, we have a few, empty spots right now. What can we do to help businesses get started back up? What can we do to help support those businesses long term? And as the guy who was in that committee asking questions on Tuesday, the clear goal in that is to make sure that businesses can not only open there, but stay open for years to come. That's what this is all about. It is not an empty storefront, putting lipstick on a pig type of proposal that I think some of the headlines and the fallout from it all suggested.
Okay, so the plan here then is to try to fill some empty storefronts in certain parts of Kansas City. You mentioned 18th and Vine. But how first off, where does all this stand when it comes to getting through city council? Is it just out of a committee right now and then it goes to a full council vote?
It is out of a committee. It will go to a full council vote today. This is money that was already appropriated in connection with small business support, but it's not empty storefronts. It is actually basically leasing to people right now. The challenge is this. Some areas of the city, we've had restaurants and others fail. Frankly, we've done this in almost every part of the city now. This is saying, all right, do you need some incentive for us to fix up the white box space? Is there a kitchen that needs to be repaired or built out in a space that used to hold a restaurant? That's the sort of thing we're looking to do. It is filling up spaces, not storefronts, and it's actually getting really successful businesses back in them in a way that we do every day of the week. We are talking about an incentive for sports teams right now. This is in many ways no different. It just helps small businesses.
Is it a direct payment to the business for upkeep, or is it the city basically paying for the upkeep on whatever projects need to be improved in these places?
It is the city, likely. Some of the facilities we own, and so those would just be us paying ourselves to improve our own properties in a lot of them, and that's the 18th and Vine discussion. For businesses that would be outside of it, it is kind of an infrastructure support type thing, capital improvement. So ultimately it does go to the business, but they go through an application process. There has to be a very fair and objective review. It has to have a vote on city council. There are a lot of steps to make sure that it's not just corporate welfare to small businesses, although I think many small businessmen listening would say it's about darn time we get it compared to some of the others around who seem to.
All right. Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Have a great weekend, and we will talk to you next week.
All right. Go Chiefs and Royals. We'll see you.
There you go. That's Quinton Lucas on KCMO Talk Radio. He's loving Mike Kehoe this morning. Listen, it would have been unfair had either of these teams left to actually just blame Quinton Lucas, but you know that is how many would have written the story. They would have said, you're the mayor who lost one or both of these two teams. Fair or unfair, that's how it would have gone.
I remember the teams that have left, I blamed the owners, but this would be a unique situation in that they would have crossed the state line.
Yes.
And not left the time zone.
And they would have said, hey, who was the mayor? Oh, it's got to be his fault. And that would not have been a completely
Not
fair
accurate
characterization. But it would have happened. So Quinton Lucas might even put up a Mike Kehoe 2028 sign in his front yard one day because he bailed them out in a big way.
In this house we believe. Mike Kehoe.